So, the year of 2024, a lot of great games. However, I'm only going to be focusing on my top 5 this year. I did top 10 last year. Last year was a special year, full of so many good games that I literally was like, I had to go top 10, but I usually only do 5. And this year, it's a 5 kind of year. And when I really went back and looked over all the games I did, not to mention the fact that I feel like overall, I don't know if I played as many as I usually do because I had so many long series, especially on YouTube, which is why I'm very thankful that I have this Twitch channel to really get a lot of these other games that I wouldn't necessarily give Let's Plays. Also a reminder that this is a top games I played this year, not top games that were released this year. I think that makes things more interesting than simply just being the games that were released in 2024. So with that in mind, let's get started. My number 5 is Silent Hill 2. This was a fucking shocker. Goddamn. I mentioned before how I had checked out Silent Hill 2 on my own, just like on the PS2. I never played much of it. I didn't like it. I didn't like how it controlled. It was just too janky. And even though I know Silent Hill's always been about its atmo, right? And the storytelling that you get sort of between the lines of what you see on screen. Everything that happens in Silent Hill is always like a metaphor for, some deep, dark secret that whatever the hell the protagonist is carrying. But I've never really been like a huge Silent Hill guy in general. Mainly for that reason that a lot of times the games are just kind of hard to play. This is easily the best Silent Hill I've ever played by a lot. It manages to modernize a lot of the gameplay elements of what made the previous Silent Hill so good, but not give up. Like it didn't make, for example, it didn't make James here into like a Leon-esque, like he's out here kicking ass and taking names and sucking dick, right? He ain't out here like as like some superhero dude, like kicking these guys and fucking just like confirm the kill. He's blasting and stuff. No, every fight in this game feels like a literal fight for your life. Also dark as fuck game where you're really just like, you feel like you're desperate, right? I don't feel like a superhero as James. And that's such a hard thing to do and a fine line to have it. But it doesn't make James like, man, playing as him sucks, which is how it felt in Silent Hill OG, Silent Hill 2 OG, where it's like, man, just playing through this shit sucks. It's like this perfect balance where I think this is just the right level of like, I can only do so much, but not be completely useless. Incredible atmosphere that I feel like Bloober Team really nailed. And they proved so much from the earlier trailers, where the earlier trailers really did feel like, in some ways, like they sort of missed the point of what James and Silent Hill was kind of all about, where they made him like super sad. And even I knew, as someone who didn't even fully understand and know about the game and his story, I'm like, that's not quite right? The idea isn't that James is actually truly regretful, is that he's in complete denial, right? And when the final game came out and the later stuff, we saw that they had actually adjusted. They changed how the game portrayed its characters to something that was much more accurate. This is a wonderful fucking remake, dude. It's beautiful too. I think the story, now finally actually seeing the full story, was also incredible. And just I think also, one of the biggest things about this game that really stood out to me was the sound design. Game really made you feel uneasy with just how good the sound was. Where I was just like, damn, man, you're like voices in your ear, like speaking sweet nothings into you. I was not expecting to like this game this much, let alone for it to be in my top 5. Like I thought, to be honest, I thought this game was just going to come out and piss everybody off. And it didn't. It did essentially what Resident Evil 4 remake did, where somehow they managed to remake a beloved classic without pissing everybody off. That is special, man. I loved the little apparent Easter eggs too that were in there that were like essentially nods to the original puzzles or how they originally structured the game. A clear love letter to the original. Number 4 game of 2024 is Trails in the Sky SC. Yes, it made it on the list. You sons of bitches. It fucking did it, bitch. What the fuck is even happening here? Listen. This fucking series had been requested by you assholes for like 6 fucking years. every Let's Play, every single one, the moment that shit was done. Nico, check out Trails in the Sky. Do it. I think you'd like it. You should check it out. You think it's up your alley, blah, 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 blah. Estelle, Bestel, blah, 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 blah. Shut up. Shut the fuck up. Don't you see how old this game is? You know, see how goofy these little characters are? You don't understand, all right? I am a content creator who only plays the newest, hippest games, okay? That's why I play games like Danganronpa and like fucking Rain Code. Finally, all right, fine. I did it. I played Trails in the Sky 1. I liked it. I did like it a lot. I liked the characters. And then I played SC. And that shit was pretty fucking peak. You did it. Are you happy now? Are you happy? Are you happy that now you forced me into a committed relationship that I didn't ask for this. I didn't request this. How dare you? How fucking dare you? All right. I was perfectly happy how I was before, but you did this to me. You made me this way.
And I'm gonna make you pay for this, penguin. I'm gonna make you fucking pay for this. I'll make you fucking pay.
The reason these games are great is 100 billion fucking percent because of its cast of characters. And I'm not even just talking about your main party. I'm talking literally every little bitch in this game. The good guys, the bad guys, the rando NPCs, this chick behind the counter. She's kind of a sick badass too. Every character in this game is kind of godlike. It has insane writing. There were a lot of cringe moments in FC, I feel, with like some things that really did not age well. I found much less of here in SC, thank God. Less of Olivier and like Shira like talking to Joshua and being like, I'm gonna do you and do things to you. And I was like, can I get less of that? And also, this was also the game where Estelle really like shines, where she like becomes like this just insanely like captivating fucking character that just kind of knocked my socks off. You know, like, holy shit, wow, she is her. She's kind of crazy how much she is able to understand what person is going through, right? But still remain this like ever like beautiful ray of sunshine, this sunlight that basically is able to cut through the bullshit for characters, right? And it doesn't matter who, whether it's Joshua, whether it's fucking Ren, whether it's Weissman at the end of the game. Like, she just cuts right through the horse shit. And it's all so believable because you literally watch her grow throughout all these games. She is the backbone to it. But every character has got an fantastic arc. Chloe and her inheritance, her right to the throne, right? Being a princess, that weight that carries. Agate and what happened in his past, the death of his sister. Tita carrying over partway through that as well, while also trying to, you know, follow through on her ambitions as well. They're pretty closely tied together. Olivier, fucking everybody, dude. Everybody in this series, except for Kevin, but we're doing that now, right? We're getting that now. Everyone goes through a beautiful arc that by the end of SC, you just feel like you're like, man, I just experienced some seriously peak fiction. Wonderful music, by the way. Also really love the music, especially in SC where they had way more tunes. The narrative of the story, funny enough though, is a very simple story. It actually kind of is. But what elevates it is not just, it's the characters and the world building. It's not like you necessarily need a complex story to be good, but it just sort of goes to show how good writing can make any story fucking good, you know? Can make any story enjoyable. And I'd say the story here is, we've seen things like this before. We've seen things with evil societies changing things and thinking they're going to change the world for the better. But for as much as it felt like sometimes SC and FC could like spin their wheels, like we're really not moving anywhere in the narrative, I didn't care. Because I never got bored. I said that these games are like the equivalent of essentially reading a really long story with the biggest slow burn buildup in existence. But that isn't necessarily meant to be like a negative. It manages to build up a story so that the payoff is so good. It's so fucking good, bro. I think the gameplay for the game, the actual like battle system, does also get much better. It's way better in SC than FC. Where FC felt like physical attacks were fucking useless, SC made that shit way better. But I won't say it's like the greatest battle system in the world. It's a system that's pretty old, right? It's part of the reason why this game is not higher on my list, as much as I think it is a brilliant fucking game. It is an old game though, dude. It's an old game, and it does show in a lot of aspects of dungeon design. There's like no puzzles in this game, man. There's like not like a single puzzle other than equip night vision goggles to see in the dark. There's like, or open a locked door. It's super fucking basic, and it never goes beyond that. The dungeons are like, even for that era too, like are super fucking basic. And the battle system, while good, I wouldn't say is exemplary, you know? And like I said, it's way better than FC, but it's not gonna like make you go like, dude, man, these older systems were just the best, you know? It kind of is, right? It just is what it is. I came to enjoy it, but I'm not gonna say it's like this is like the best shit ever, right? A game that came out way before this game, I think FF7's battle system was better than this game. The other aspects of the game, characters and world building, the world building's fucking crazy in these games, dude. Every NPC that has a name has a fucking story. It's so mind-boggling that they went to that length. This is why this game was an actual nightmare for the team to translate, because every fucking character has a story. There's 8 bajillion fucking pages. There's like I think they said it was like more text than all 3 of Tolkien's books combined or something, like in this game. And it's not just the NPCs and their arcs, but the variations depending on what characters you bring in certain moments, because the game is smart enough to be like, oh, we remembered you did this thing a long fucking time ago, and characters will remark on it. Or they'll say things because you said this specific option in this specific moment. It's fucking wild. Like they put that much effort in there, knowing that a lot of people probably won't even notice it. It makes you wish that they had something to keep track of all the NPCs, right? I've talked about this before. I hope later games get that, because I think that's such an amazing amount of love and effort put into the game that people should notice, but it should also be made easier to notice, because unfortunately the game is old, and so NPCs all look the same. I wish there was some way to keep track of it that made it easier to, because I do think it's interesting, and I like seeing where the stories go, because some of them have pretty cool ones. It's cool to see the story change based on decisions you made or quests that you completed. Also, the side quests in the game are fucking great, because they put so much effort and love into character dialogue. I think this game is awesome. Truly. I think this is I don't know if I can wholeheartedly say that this is a game for everybody. The Trails games are interesting, and I understand now why they are so niche. I do think that there are aspects of this game that haven't aged super great, and I actually believe that in a lot of ways, the remakes that we will get for these will probably alleviate a lot of those problems, because they are introducing new modern gameplay elements while still keeping the things that made the original great, like all that NPC dialogue, you know, and all the extra great character stuff. So as long as they keep that up and then they just, modernize aspects of it, those will likely be the definitive ways to experience this story. It is not necessarily going to be for everybody, because it is a slow burn kind of game. But if you're willing to fall in love with characters, right, and to actually hell, if you're willing to sit there and read the literal novels that they've put in the world, which are actually good, highly recommend Carnelia. That story was fucking fire. Yeah, dude, you'll love this game. My number 3 game of 2024 is Persona 3 Reload. This is how you do a fucking remake, bitch. I liked Persona 3. It was my first Persona game. It was the game that I played even before I played Persona 4. I played it before I started doing YouTube stuff. So there was no record of that, that was just in my own time. I got it on the PS3. I bought it on the PlayStation Network store, and I played the FES version. I always considered it, in retrospect, after playing 4 and 5, this is the inferior version. This is the inferior game to 4 and 5. And now having gone and played this version, especially returning to the series after many years, now with a new coat of paint and a bunch of new bells and whistles to improve the experience, I think I didn't give enough credit to this game's cast of characters and its story. It honestly holds up really well. while there have been adjustments made, don't be wrong, like we got brand new voice actors who all did a fantastic job, and some changes to dialogue and things and how characters are handled, it's not actually that different. Yukari, as much as I feel like she's completely different in this game than the original, isn't actually that different. She just isn't voiced by Michelle Ruff, so she just kind of sounds less bitchy. So I end up not like disliking her nearly as much as I did when I first played through the game. She's still a little bit like prickly, but that's just her character, you know? The gameplay is vastly improved, like vastly fucking improved. It's definitely got the Persona 5 elements that make turn-based combat so fucking smooth. And I gotta say also the music, as much as I was, when comparing like the old tunes to the new tunes, right? There's some versions of songs that I'm like, I think I prefer the old one better. The more you listen to it, the more you just kind of forget about it. And it like, and all the new songs were honestly great, like super fucking good. So a lot of this just like comparison syndrome, you know, where you get stuck with like, I guess I'm used to the old one. But once you like listen, you're like, no, the new one's actually kind of fire too, dude. I think that the dungeon crawling is still relatively basic compared to Persona 5. Persona 4, it's actually still kind of on par with Persona 4. Persona 4 was kind of the same way. They didn't really change much in that regard. It's still like kind of the same randomly generated things. But the fact that the gameplay has reached a point where it is like, that doesn't really matter much because the core of the gameplay is still so fun, which is just running around. They added like new upgrades to your character, like, you know, being able to dash, like get super dash so you can secure an ambush or whatever. Little nuances and changes and adjustments, like the doors, the monad doors were nice. That was a nice change of pace, helped mix things up and add a bit of a challenge. I really can't compliment enough though, by the way, the voice acting team. Like, I loved the OG team and like Liam O'Brien, Michelle Ruff, Yuri Lowenthal. I think they did a great job, but fuck me, dude. Like, especially, I think the biggest shout out I have to give, I think is Junpei. Junpei's voice actor, he killed it, dude. He was so good in this game. It kind of blew my mind. And it made me really realize, like, dude, Junpei is a kind of amazing character. Way better. I'm like, I think at the tier list of fucking like bro buddies that we always get, like Ryuji and Yosuke, I kind of put like, yeah, you know, he's kind of like down on the bottom here, right? Junpei's kind of like down here. I don't know. I think he's probably at the bottom of the pack. Now I'm like, no, man, he's kind of amazing. And I think they did better. I think they did adjust some of his dialogue to make him even better. Not to mention characters like Shinji and stuff were also handled really well. The extra bits of story we got about him to make, you know, the certain moment later on even more impactful. It goes to show how the Persona gameplay loop, despite this still being essentially the first game in the series that really kind of like not counting, you know, Persona 1 or 2, the two games, right? Like, this is the game that essentially defined what would become our Persona gameplay loop, right? Of the going to school and the dungeon crawling and the social elements in between. And a lot of that is still intact and still relatively the same as it was before. Mostly the same social links and how you tackle them. But it still holds up so fucking well. Just with a new adjusted coat of paint. And the game does look beautiful. Granted, there are moments like the environment I wouldn't say is necessarily like insanely like captivating for the like the randomly generated dungeons and everything, but they look good and it runs well. The social elements, I still do wish, there is still part of me that wishes they had included the female protagonist, because that really would have made it a completely different experience for me. But I still think, I know they've said they're not going to do that. I still think at some point we're going to get a version of this game where they add that. I don't believe them. I think they will have like a new Persona 3 Reload portable edition or something, a P3P version of this. Hell, modders have already essentially put her in the game anyway. But there's so many like quality of life things. It's so much easier to find and keep track of all your social links here in this version. Things that have been brought over from Persona 5 that just make this, like, in my opinion, I don't think there's any fucking reason to ever play FES again after this version. There's like no reason, because guess what? They also have the answer. And it's still pretty much what it was before. As someone who tried it, I did end up feeling pretty much the exact same feelings that I felt about it the first time around, I only did it for one stream, and it is essentially play the game again, but with Igus, with additional story elements. And unfortunately, by that point, the gameplay loop of like going to those dungeons, but now without any of the social elements, just didn't really appeal to me. I don't know what they could have necessarily done to make that much better. Like, I really don't. I'm not even out here trying to be like, oh, they should have done this. I'm like, I don't know, man. That's kind of a hard thing. But I am glad it's there and that it exists. You know? It truly does make at least this version, like, there's just no reason to ever go back to FES. Just play this one. It's better in every way. If we ever do get a remake of Persona 4, which I'm going to tell you right now, we probably will. It probably won't be anytime soon, but we probably will get a Persona 4 remake at some point. If this is what we can expect in terms of quality for it, I think that's pretty great, man. Like, I think that's good. This was a really good remake, man. I think if you can get a remake of a game that essentially actually makes the original kind of inferior in almost every way, that means you kind of did a good job, you know? This is definitely the game that Persona 3 deserved. It always deserved this game. Because it was held back by so much archaic horseshit. Like, dude, you used to not be able to control your character. Don't forget that. You used to only be able to control your guy and then pray to RNGesus that your characters didn't do some stupid shit. Yeah, your characters get sick and tired. You're like, fucking shut up, you bitch. You fucking whiners. All that shit is gone. This game really needed it more than any of them, all right? And now, in my opinion, this game is like at least on par with Persona 4 Golden. I still say Persona 5 is still like the king, but I think this game, I mean, fuck, dude. I like between like whether I like this game more or Persona 4 Golden, I don't know, man. I think they're kind of tied for me. They're really fucking good. Also, Yuko, top tier. Her voice actress is also so good. She made this character so like, I'm like, I liked Yuko a lot in the original, but she made her like even better in this one. I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, I was already sort of committed to Fuka here, but I'm not so sure now. Absolutely great remake. Number 2 is Astrobot. Astrobot supremacy. It fucking continues. Astrobot sweep. Astrobot sweep. Astrobot sweep. Look at this big bitch. That's right. Astrobot is my number 2 game this year. This could have easily been my number 1 game. This game is fucking awesome. Like, I don't even have like too many problems with it. It's just like, it's like the same thing I felt about Hi-Fi Rush in all ways, where this game is just joy. This game is joy packaged into a beautiful, adorable platformer. By the way, underrated soundtrack. This game had an amazing soundtrack. This song right here is the it's when you had that big tree singing to you. This game swept the Game Awards this year. I mean, even ended up winning Game of the Year. And honestly, as much as I was like, oh, you know, I had my own like Game of the Year specific thing. Like, no, dude, this game was amazing. It absolutely deserved all the accolades it received. It was so fucking creative in so many of its gameplay elements, what it had you do and what it had you like actually like the different power-ups you got. Like this one right here where you're a sponge and you suck up water and turn hues. Like that's such a cool gameplay element. There's one also that like where you shrink down into a mouse and you enter like a level within a level and it's all seamless, right? Like it's actually like there's so much like impressive like physics and like design on display that is, I almost feel like it's kind of glossed over for just like, oh, you know, it's cute, fun, romps. Like, no, dude, this is actually like actually impressive. Like how they did this, and it's all seamless. Not to mention, of course, the game literally filled to the brim with iconic PlayStation cameos. Dude, Gex is in this game, bro. Fucking Tumba's in this game. A bunch of shit that even me, who grew up as a PlayStation boy, had never even heard of before. I'm like, who the fuck is this person? I didn't know who that one was either. That's from Siren, I think. This is a game that already on its own, even if you're not like a PlayStation like head, like me, it's already fantastic. But if you are a PlayStation head, this game is insanely just like a joy to go through. It's just an absolute joy. And I'm not like, I don't want to make it seem like, am I like a Sony fanboy? No, dude. Fuck Sony. I'm a fan of the games, though, that have been on these consoles, you know? I grew up with a PlayStation 1. These are a lot of timeless games for me, and that I know a lot about. So to see a game that actually gives reverence to these titles more than Sony ever has, right? Ever. Like, Sony is like, modern day Sony wants you to forget any of those old games ever happened because they're old jank shit. The Jim Ryan fucking thought process of what a legacy is. And it's, to me, it's the dumbest shit ever, because it's like Sony had always had these amazing IPs, and if they're choosing, no, we don't want to talk about them or embellish in them. Like, Nintendo is actually generally decently good about that, right? They will actually like continue to call back to series and keep bringing them back in new ways. But Sony's just like, no, fuck that. Brand new IPs or fucking realistic horse shit, sad dad simulators, you know, it's like, and they're not like they're bad, but there's a charm that I feel like it was lost that we don't see anymore. And this is the like one game out of Sony's many IPs in like the past decade that is actually going back to harness that pure joy that is just a simple platformer. And actually really, like, you just can feel it, man, in every part of this game, how much Team Asobi fucking loves these PlayStation games that they're referenced here. They love gaming in general. They think it's a good thing embracing these IPs because they're fucking right. It is. Like, a legacy should not just be left behind. It should be embraced. You should have callbacks. You should look at this fucking look at this little, these on this little bucket. There are things that are literally just designed in this game to make you smile, to make you feel good. It was not put in here necessarily for any other reason. I guess my only, like, maybe my one critique, I wish there were more levels like this where you had like specific IPs and stuff, you know? Like they actually had like their own level and their focus, because these were great as well. I mean, to be fair, they have been adding more. They've literally been adding free like levels and DLCs with more, as Roomby puts it, famous friends added to the game. That's where like Gex and Tumba came back. This is truly Sony's Mario. Pulls from the same kind of joy and love that we get from a Mario game. And it's something that I hope Sony sees the success that this game has had, the awards that it has earned, and they start actually investing more time and energy into it. This game isn't necessarily the most, I mean, I think it's a beautiful game, but is it like the highest fidelity PlayStation game ever with realistic pores? And no, fucking no. But it didn't need to be. It doesn't need to be that. It's wonderful on its own. Team Asobi, they should be cherished, because this is such a triumph of a fucking game. This is even better than I even thought it could be. I remember when I played Astro's Playroom for the first time when I got my PS5, and I said they should make a fucking, I literally said that at the end of the game, where I'm like, this is amazing. They should literally make a full game that is this. And they fucking did, and it was even better than I thought it could be. Before I get my number one game, let me talk about my my honorable mentions real quick. Unicorn Overlord. That was a great game. I did enjoy it a lot. It's definitely not my favorite Vanillaware game that I've ever played. That's still 13 Sentinels. I'd say it's probably like tied with Odin Sphere. I think I feel pretty similarly that I did for that one. The gameplay loop of the game was super addicting once you got into it, and had some great music. I mean, beautiful art, insane husbandos and waifus. But I think the story overall was pretty basic. It was like, you know, you just kind of get from point A for point B, but it was super fun. And once you understand like the min-maxing and like getting shit and essentially putting the gambit system together to make your party like kick ass, super fun. Another game I really enjoyed, Animal Well. I 100% understand why people were like, this is one of the best games this year. How deep can the rabbit hole go for that game is truly mind-boggling. Especially when we saw the like, once you got past layer 2, right? Once you got to like, all right, now layer 3, here's the meta game within the game. that's when shit started to get really wild. But even just like the base level of what the game is, that the game gives you these, it's a Metroidvania, but you get a bunch of really wild and different like gear and like item and stuff, things that you don't normally see in games, like blowing bubbles or throwing a frisbee or spinning a top. It's very clever. It's a very clever and well-designed game that encourages you to experiment. When you figure shit out, how to do stuff, like I stumbled upon the like gimmick of like tossing the frisbee and jumping on it. Like I did it once and I was like, how did I do that? What happened? You know, you feel like a god. It's pretty amazing. That said, trying to figure out actually like personally trying to get like that level 3 or level 4 layer of like going that deep to get to the point where literally Video Game Donkey is talking to you and saying, I've been trapped in this game disc for like 20 years and you saved me. Getting to that point, fuck that. That's what the internet is for. I watched somebody else do that and explain it to me. I'm not gonna solve that. Hell no. I've got a life, bro. Another great game, Slay the Princess. That was a delightful surprise. That game had already received a lot of great reviews, but I think I didn't realize just how insane the choices of that game are. Like every choice truly matters. That there's just that many branching storylines and that much dialogue in the game that's also voiced. Every bit of is voiced in the game. And I think the realization that I had playing through it, right? Because for those of you who watched it, I started out completely like I'm going crazy, vengeful, murdering everybody I know and love, because I thought that's what the game wanted me to do. I didn't inherently trust the game. I thought that was the point, was that I'm not supposed to trust this chick. She's gonna stab me in the back. So I sort of made it in my head like, all right, I'm just gonna go in there and fucking kill the shit out of her. But I eventually realized, oh no, I'm actually being lied to. I need to no, this isn't right at all. So, but that's kind of the beauty of it, right? That's why everyone says there's no wrong choice, right? It's your choice. It's your experience. And it's fun to talk to people and hear their experience with the game. Where do they start? Where do they go, right? Because I could also see very easily somebody start off trusting her and learn not to trust her because they think that they're being toyed with, right? It's a very interesting game design. Yakuza 5. I know some of you might be surprised when it's not higher up on my list. It probably would have made my top 10 and stuff, but it was a great game. And I say out of the three, the Yakuza 3, 4, and 5, right? They essentially were the original versions of these games remastered and content put back in, like in Yakuza 3's case. It was definitely the best of those, but it still had a lot of problems. I love Shinada though. I thought, and I do think that Kiryu, funny enough, had one of the best actual arcs in the game compared to the previous game, especially. And I think that it's a fucking huge game with a lot of gameplay stuff, and it's fun. I loved exploring some brand new cities. I enjoyed aspects of a lot of the story. Yeah, funny enough, Shinada though ended up being sort of the GOAT for that game, and I was like, wow, he really is he's just a dude. He's just a dude who wants to play baseball, all right? That ended up being the one that kind of struck the biggest chord with me. But yeah, I liked it. I did. But not enough to be like in my top 5. There's still a lot of problems with it, and I still wouldn't even put it on like my top like Yakuza games either, you know? It's still, in my opinion, held back by some writing elements. RGG still had not quite gotten to the point where they really had, I feel like, gotten this gameplay down to like a science, you know? Pretty soon after that, they kind of do, you know? I think Yakuza 0 comes not long after that, and that game is still one of the best fucking games I've ever played. A few other ones. Shadow of the Erd Tree. I did really enjoy this. However, I will say, after completing it, I almost completely forgot about it. I'm not gonna lie. If there hadn't been this huge kerfuffle on the internet about the Game Awards and DLC being there, I almost would have forgotten it came out this year. To me, it was like just more Elden Ring. I liked the map, I think, a bit better in this new one. And there are a lot of fun elements to it, but it feels like the magic of what Elden Ring was the second time around just wasn't as impactful or memorable. It's a great game. It is. And I think it's actually a really good expansion. But I almost completely forgot about it after I finished playing it. Well, whereas Elden Ring OG, that one sat with me for a while. Shadow of the Erd Tree was just like, I beat it and I forgot about it like the next day. There were also definitely some design, like, there's definitely some things in that game, in the DLC, that felt a little like, what the hell? I think the Skidoo fragments were kind of odd. Some of the bosses were definitely super jank in the game. It feels like they were intentionally just made to piss you off. Like, it feels like, oh, okay, we're really, like, there is like no openings to attack at any point. You just got to be perfect. Like, they maybe pushed it a little bit too far. I mean, it's still a vibe, you know? It's still enjoyable. And then finally, the other game I want to bring up is Wukong. I only streamed, I think, like 2 streams of it, but I did actually beat it. I beat it off stream. Funny enough, I think in some ways I actually enjoyed Wukong more than Shadow of the Erdtree, even though I would still argue that Shadow of the Erdtree was probably technically a bit better. But the reason being that Wukong was different, you know, it was a different kind of experience, a different kind of quote unquote Souls-like. It wasn't really a Souls-like, but it felt like a Souls-like based on how the combat was. I liked it. I really liked it. I think that was a surprise. Like, yeah, this actually is really good. It's not a perfect game, right? Hence why it's not even my top 5. But I understand why, even outside of the fact that it is a Chinese game and the huge portion of the country voted and, you know, loved it and everything, right? That's why I got, like, you know, so many accolades. It is actually a good game, though. It's got a lot of performance issues. Some bosses are fucking bullshit. And there are elements of it that I think that the weapon variety and stuff, like, I think that's a fair fucking thing. Because, yeah, you definitely get pretty tired of swinging that fucking pole. But the game gives you so many other elements to control, like powers and stuff I think are pretty cool, that I don't think... I personally was never too bored by that. I think some of the levels too could at times be just too big. Like, I feel like there's a little bit too much running from point A to point B, and you're just like with nothing really happening except for encountering the same little scrub dudes that you've run into like a billion times. But the game is essentially almost like a boss rush for how many different bosses are in the game, and I kind of have to give it to them, or I'm like, there's a lot of bosses in this game. They're all pretty fun. I think the game was also, for the most part, aside from a few really bullshit bosses, was actually easier than a normal Souls game. Great music. Story is hard to follow, but it had great cutscenes, beautifully animated cutscenes between that really helped elevate it quite a bit, including that little musical number with the little pig friend, which I really loved. Overall, a very solid game. I'd probably give like an 8 or something, you know? I still would recommend it. If you're a Souls guy, I would highly recommend it, checking out that game. But yeah, that's my honorable mentions for the year. So now we must move on to my number 1 game that absolutely nobody knows what it could possibly be. I mean, I had to think long and hard about this, bro. I had to think a long goddamn time about this. I don't know. It was a very difficult decision to come to. Trying to figure out what I was going to pick for my number 1 game. But after many hours, many hundreds of millions and billions and trillions of hours thinking about this, I finally decided my number 1 game of 2024 is... What is it? What could it possibly be? What could it fucking possibly be? I don't know. It's Hello Kitty Island Adventure again. That's right. We did it. We're fucking doing it. Hello Kitty Island Adventure, the greatest game ever to come out. For the 8th year in a row, guys, it is Hello Kitty Island Adventure. As you can see, it really pushed the PlayStation hardware to the next level. It's definitely the greatest game. Okay, this joke's been done to death. Let's just get fucking, you know what it is. You fucking know what it is. Shut up. It's this stupid game. It's fucking Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Of course it fucking is. Because of course it is. Oh, Lord. Do I get to gush more about this game? Hell yeah, I do. That's like one of my favorite things is gushing about this game. Oh, goody. I get to gush about fucking Final Fantasy VII Rebirth again. So this game is like one of the best games I've ever played. This is one of the best games I've ever played. No shit. I would not say that about Final Fantasy VII Remake. That game was incredible. Don't get me wrong. It showed you what a remake for a Final Fantasy could be. What a remake for a game could be. And it moved the series in a direction none of us were expecting. And while it was excellent, it had a lot of problems, bro. It had a lot of things that were like, okay, but is it like one of the best things you've ever played? Ah! They figured it out, man. They managed to somehow take the part where you actually enter the big, fat, open world of Final Fantasy VII, right? They managed to do that and not feel like it was compromised. Because this is like, it always made sense, right? If they were going to split off Final Fantasy, Midgar had to be its own section. Because once you actually enter into this big-ass world, the experience would be very different. So different that there's no fucking way you would have fit that into what was essentially a linear corridor simulator of Midgar. And I think that was part of what made Remake sort of a little disappointing in some aspects. I think some of us expected, and myself too, to an extent, expected a bit more of an expansion to Midgar, but it really was just Midgar with a few new little bells and whistles, but it wasn't that different from the original, and it didn't really allow you to go and see more of Midgar than you could already. But this motherfucking game actually improved so many things from the original. I think the exploration in this game is by far the best of any Square Enix game in a long damn time. I'd argue since the original PS1 classics, where we actually had overworld maps, right? Before Final Fantasy X came around, and that started to go away as systems started to get more advanced. I think the problem that a lot of games started to get as console hardware got more powerful and as fidelity increased is that, well, how do you scale that? Because games are now getting more expensive. They're now getting grander and bigger, and it becomes harder to make a game with a world this big and captivating without essentially sacrificing performance, without sacrificing dev time. You don't want games taking like, fucking 8 years to come out, right? And you don't even know if the time and money that gets put into it is even going to get recouped at some point. This game is the first game since I think before FF10 that I felt actually is like next gen, like truly next gen. Like the world of this game is just, it's fucking nuts, dude. One, I mean, this game does have a pretty significant budget, but the talent, like, dude, look at fucking Bill. The characters that you meet are expanded upon so much more in this version of the game. This fucking cinematography, like, this is one thing I isn't talked about. Like the camera angles, like from just normal conversations, regular side quests, they're completely optional, are so good in this game. Like, characters aren't standing there like static dudes and it's cutting back and forth like a Mass Effect cutscene. No, characters emote and move and do shit for side content. For side content in the game. There is so much fucking effort put into every Square Enix inch of this game. More so than any fucking Final Fantasy I've seen in a long time. And that includes even the recent FF16, man. I'll be fucking honest, dude. This game's exploration and combat blows 16s out of the water. Which the combat, by the way, built upon the remake's base mechanics. Just so engaging. Like, they make Cloud so much better in this game than he was in Remake. He's so fucking fun to play, which is great because you're obviously gonna be controlling him the most. But dude, everyone's expanded. Aerith is so much better in this game, dude, with all the wards she can put down. Tifa is still the god. Like, every character is so good. Red is also like insanely fun with all of it. Like, I initially wasn't sure about Red, but dude, no, Red is so good, especially as he gets more stuff. Barrett with his support. Fucking Kate Sith. They actually made Kate Sith a character that you want to control. He's still a weirdo, but he's also a real character. Yuffie is still a god, just as much as she was in the DLC for Remake. But goddamn, dude, were both those characters, by the way, in the original FF7 fucking balls. I could not tell you how much I disliked them, and I never used them. Yuffie was just obnoxious, and Kate Sith was just barely there and barely existed. And this game makes them so much better. Dude, Yuffie has a fucking reason to be there. all of the whole like Wu Tai situation essentially affecting the game's story now in a way that it never did before was so smart. Because now Yuffie has like actual like stakes. She has an actual reason to be in the story and not just this random chick you find in a forest one day. And she's just so much more likable too, right? Like I refer to fucking what's her face, the chick with the hat, really annoying girl with the stockings and the hat, Kyrie. Yeah, she was old Yuffie. That's why I really cracked up when I saw her and like Yuffie interact with each other. I'm like, it's like old Yuffie versus new Yuffie. She really is, dude. Like that, like Kyrie is basically just like, she's a character that was designed to just be an annoying teenage girl with like no redeeming things at all. She just exists to piss you off. And that is not the case for new Yuffie. No, not at all. Also the voice actors. Every voice actor in this game, mwah, beautifully done. Wonderful. Such fucking wonderful versions of these characters. God damn. Cody Christian with his Cloud too kills it. Kills it. No misses. But Kaseth also, just, he is so much more endearing now. And again, has more of a reason to be there than he ever did before. And I'm not even talking about the fucking music, bro. Dude, this game might have one of the best soundtracks of any game I've ever played, which is pretty crazy to say because I've played a lot of excellent games that have had excellent soundtracks, including the original FF7. This game blows them away. I only think probably comes close maybe is some of the Xenoblade games, but I almost think this, Simmons might get mad at me. I think I might like this game's soundtrack better. And a lot of this, like, I think that this game on its own, you've never played a Final Fantasy VII game ever before, I think you will still enjoy this game. I think this game is fantastic on its own. But as an FF7 lover, as someone who considers Final Fantasy VII to be his favorite game of all time, it had a huge impact on my enjoyment of JRPGs, of story games, of characters, and value that extremely. This is one of the greatest things I've ever played. This is a transcendent experience. And I can't even believe how good it is. Like, it actually boggles my mind how fucking incredible. How is it that these characters are better than they ever were in the original? And I don't even, like, even just like talking about Yuffie and Kaseth at the side, every character is better in this game. There's no like, well, this one kind of wasn't nearly as good. No, every single character was better in this game than it was than they were in the original. Red, Cloud, Aerith, Barret, Tifa, Rufus, fucking the Shinra folks, the goddamn Turks, Sephiroth. Everybody was so much better in this game, man. I liked Red's new voice. I thought that was, I actually thought it was really cute. I was like, oh, that makes sense. I understand that. Like little like wrinkles and things they threw in there to sort of make it feel like a different experience, you know? And here's the interesting thing about this game. This game, I would not say completely replaces the original game. Like you should just play this and not play the original. No, you should play both. I'm not even kidding. Because the gameplay experience is so different. This is what I mean. This is like a new kind of remake. We will never, ever get a remake like this probably ever again. I'm not even kidding you. Because you also have to realize that this game was literally remade by the people that worked on the original game. Like that made the original story. That were part of that. Like they fucking are the ones behind this. Which is why the characters are better than they ever have fucking been. Because of the design of the game, they want to hold some stuff off, so I can't really say much about Sid or Vincent because they haven't really gotten any chance to shine yet. But for everyone else who has actually had a moment to shine, yeah. God, I love the gameplay of this game so much, dude. Fucking hell. And I was one of the people who was like, they should just stuck with the turn-based stuff, right? Before Remake released. I'm so glad they didn't, man. This shit's just... like, the actual, like, execution... for some of this stuff. They even had perfect blocking to the game, which was fucking awesome. It's just so fucking good, man. It's such a wonderful balance between like the turn-based stuff with the ATB and also like action combat with execution. The fucking side content in this game, man, is like, there's so much of it. I'd almost say at times make me feel like there's too much of it, but I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that it's all so high quality, and you just feel like you have to do all of it because it's all so high quality and you get good rewards for it. But I think the real, the thing that sort of ended up being a bit of a detriment to the game and why I think people ended up getting burned out on it was because there was basically all the side content in the game was basically listed out for you in a giant checklist. And this is something that the devs have already gone on to say that they're going to alleviate later, where they're actually going to leave things to be more discovered, more secret, so that aren't just told to you and a big Chadley things to do, right? Towers telling you exactly where to go. It's hard in this day and age to make content that you know not everyone will see, right? It's sort of what like games like, for example, Elden Ring or FromSoft, right, have really done a good job of adding, which is secrets. But you know what else actually had really great secrets in it? The original Final Fantasy VII. Final Fantasy VII, I swear to God, every time I watch somebody go through that game, or if I like deep dive into aspects of FF7 OG, as someone who has played that game dozens of times, I still will see things that I have never seen before. Like I remember, I think about a year ago, I discovered something that I didn't know existed, that there was in one area, this like the snowy area that we haven't even gotten to in this series yet. You can go to this little house and find a video of Hojo's experiments on Aerith's mother, and like a recording based on that by Professor Gast. Actually, no, I'm sorry, specifically Gast and his experience with Aerith's mom. I did not know that was there. I was like, what? And I just like, there's so many of that, like where I'm like, I didn't know you could do this. There's like so many things that pop up, and like, and I think that's important to have because it makes the world really feel like we're all going to have our own unique journey. We might not see everything, but we'll have a journey that was truly our own. And how cool is it to talk to somebody and learn that, oh, there was this whole other thing I completely missed. Oh my God. I think the things that this game does well too, with its story and its characters, and just like, the funny thing is what you actually do in the game is relatively inconsequential to the actual grander narrative of the story, which is like what's going on with Sephiroth and stuff. Like that's barely touched upon in this game until like the last like few hours, which I do think could have been handled a little bit better. The nice thing is the next game will probably be mostly that, you know? That's where we're really going to get it. And I think that's why the third game has such potential to be like the best game in the series, because even as much as I think this game is fucking phenomenal, we're still left with just as many questions as we were at the start of the game. So we don't actually know whether the crazy plot twists and things that they put in here, they've been inserting since Remake, that essentially differs from the original game, whether they're going to be concluded in a satisfying way or not. But man, am I really looking forward to seeing what they do. I personally do feel at this point that they will stick the landing. I think that I think there will still be people who are going to be like, it will still divide people for sure. But I think that for people who have really become invested in this like new universe's story, right? Like I have, I think it will be like another transcendent kind of emotional moment to see it all come to a head. Yeah, so this game is, I would actually argue, is potentially one in my like top 10 games of all time. I don't know specifically where it would be, but it's definitely maybe even top 5. Maybe I'd really have to think about that, but it's really up there. Oh yes, also Queen's Blood. Best card minigame since freaking Triple Triad. Easily. There's so much in this game, bro. There's so much fucking shit in this game. And I was like, I didn't even bring up Queen's Blood. I didn't even bring up the Golden Saucer, or like fucking when you go to Costa del Sol, all the big moments of fucking like Dine moment. That shit fucked me up. I was like, man, could they actually like deliver on the Golden Saucer? Hell yes, they did. Can God, Barrett's so good in this game. If anything could have managed to beat this game after I played this year, would have been a miracle. I was like, I just knew after being, I'm like, nothing's gonna beat this game for me this year. Nothing. There aren't many games that I come out the other end feeling like this is like one of the best games I've ever played. All these little mini games too, dude. They were so fun. Again, it's hard to design a game in this day and age that doesn't encourage everyone to see everything, all the hard work that you put into your game. Not to mention you want to feel like, oh, you're rewarding people for doing all this stuff. It's not something you would necessarily think about. And be fair, like, Square Enix has never really done a world, like truly a world on the scale that they did for this game. So yeah, there are a lot of kind of what I'd call Ubisoft-isms in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And some work and some, maybe not as much, you know? And especially with how much there is to do in the game, it can lead to some burnout for people. But I don't think that means they should cut back in the next game. I just think they should keep some of that stuff more secret, make it harder to find, and not necessarily make it so you have to get everything to get this item or something, right? That's, I think, the big thing that would solve it. But yes, regardless, FF7 Rebirth, that was my favorite game of this year. To the surprise of literally everybody. Nobody saw that coming. Absolutely nobody. I know. It's crazy. It's wild. I just wasn't anything beating it, man. It just wasn't. I don't think there was anything that could have possibly beat it this year.